Hi, this is Erika Frensley, and this is a look back at LavaCon 2019. This is an observation of the conference, various panels and workshops, and the information that I got from it that I'd like to share with everybody. First, a few bits of information about LavaCon. LavaCon started about 19 years ago to help content professionals stay ahead of the authoring and publishing technologies. LavaCon 2019 focused on unifying content across the enterprise, leveraging the new immersive technologies, AR, etc., and create great content experiences. One of the really nice things about LavaCon is that it has a virtual track. All keynote sessions and one breakout session from each time slot are live streamed, with recordings and slides for all sessions available for later viewing. This is a great option if you cannot attend the conference in person to attend virtually. The price savings are significant, and LavaCon does its best to make sure that you are part of the entire conference experience. LavaCon also includes some great post and pre-conference workshops, fun events, and lots of great food. The theme for LavaCon 2019 was creating unified content experiences, unifying all of your content across the enterprise, marketing, training, technical documentation, user-guided content, UI, and combining that to create an entire content experience. One of the flagships for the conference ended up being Captain Content, with some great stickers and some part of a wonderful presentation by Alan Porter, which I'll discuss a bit later. I have to say that Captain Content and the associated characters were drawn by Tom Caller. Wonderful graphic novel, Love and Capes. Highly recommend it. One of the keynotes was called Be the Hero in Your Content Strategy Story. The theme of the conference, Be a Content Hero. And be your own hero. Jen Schaefer from Netflix had a lot of interesting guidelines and ideas. To sum it up, we use language and information strategically to design experiences that people love. We do this being part of the team, but sometimes we have challenges that we must overcome to bring our special skills to bear. For instance, no one understands what I do. It's sometimes difficult for TechCom training, etc., to really get across not only the basics of what we do, but everything that we can do and everything we can contribute. To get around this, lean into your own superpower. Communicate what you do, teach what you do, train what you do, show what you do. Another challenge that we have is, we'll never get it done. Resource constraints and time constraints. As Jen puts it, make the tough choices, be the hero, make the call. If you can't do it, determine what can be done, what the priority level is. And if you can't do it, say why, and make a plan for addressing it if you can. Another challenge is we don't get invited to all the meetings, again, because not everyone understands what we do. Jen suggests be courageous and vulnerable. Speak out, approach people, ask to go to the meetings, ask to be invited. And if you do go to those meetings, be at the meetings, be part of the meetings. Don't just stand off, but contribute as part of the meetings. One of the last challenges, my coworkers don't speak the same language as me. find your friends, find the other TechCom periphery positions and people in your organization. Reach out across the organization, reach out to conferences. All of this rolls together to be the hero in your content strategy story. Alan Porter presented Heroes and Villains of Content Strategy, and you'll see Captain Content again. It's a great way to present the heroes of content strategy and some of the evil forces that we all face. Captain Content knows the content and where it should be used. And Captain Content's supervillain is Slick Copy Man, the techno geek of evil. This is the one that just loves all the new tech, loves all the new stuff, but really doesn't understand how to deliver the content appropriately to our customers and users. Content Auditor will audit and find the content that should be used. And the evil supervillain is the invisible owner, the black hole of content. Yeah, the invisible owner either owns content and will not release it, or somehow any content that you send to the owner just disappears into this black hole from which it never reemerges. The channel master knows the content channels for the customer, how to use those content channels, and which content channels works best for each type of customer, versus the content slinger. This is the guy that creates one piece of content with no collaboration, throws it off into the internet void, and is no longer responsible for it, does not track it, just slings it out there. The agent of change changes the way content is managed and delivered, changes, for instance, going from PDF user manual type of information to new interface design and embedded help, which does have quite a bit of change and challenge. And the evil supervillain is corporate inertia. We can all say it together because this is their favorite phrase. We've always done it this way. Inertia does not want to change, does not want to see anything new, doesn't want to do anything to deliver content in a new way that would be more beneficial to the customer. Because of these supervillains versus content strategy, there really does need to be a new information delivery model in which content strategists, content engineers, and content operations collaborate with the information architect and data scientist to create good content models for delivery. Customer experience and intelligent content take teamwork. And sometimes you can work with some of the forces of the supervillains, but you can't be fighting against the supervillains forever. You have to team up with them. A very interesting panel is Let's Put Some Strategy in Our Content Strategies by Kathy Wagner. One of the things that she pointed out is that we may come up with a fantastic new content strategy plan, but we don't always come up with a strategy on how we're going to put and introduce that content strategy plan. We need a strategy plan for our content strategy plan. Strategy is not best practices or tactics. The strategy is a coherent sense of the policies and analysis that will be taken to respond to a challenge. As with all strategy plans, a content strategy plan to implement a content strategy needs to have the foundation and findings, the current situations, obstacles, and opportunities, a guiding focus, the goal and strategic plan. What do we intend to do to promote the content strategy plan that we're trying to put into place? And an action plan with the standard who, what, when, and how. How are we going to present this plan? Who are we going to present it to get backing? What may they be responsible for? What may need to happen in order to get this content strategy plan accepted? And when are you going to present that content strategy plan? A very insightful presentation that I found was called "This is not a manual, this is an experience," presented by Stefan Gentz of Adobe. Content experience management is about managing all the touch points of a customer with the content of an organization. He talks about not creating technical communication for manual, but orchestrating all of the content that will touch a customer as part of that content experience. The customer journey goes through the first contact of the product. Of course, he used Adobe as an example, a flyer, a sign. The customer then goes into the investigation phase. What is this product? What will it do for me? May do it on the web or via magazines or going to a trade show. The shopping experience. Customers getting serious about this and wants to buy it. How will the customer purchase it? Via phone, in person, online? What will that experience be like? The user experience. Once a customer buys it, installs it, how does that program work for them? How does that software work? Is the UI appropriate? Is it a good experience for the customer? And if the customer has issues, what is the support and user assistance experience like? If they have an issue, is it easy for them to find help? Are there troubleshooting wizards? Are there communities that they can reach out to? This is all part of the customer journey that content experience management handles the entire coherent view. Touch points, how the customer may find and touch on these pieces of content. Digital, via search engines, online campaigns, a website, user communities, social media, or offline, going to the stores, the packaging, the product and service features, the ease of use of a product. All of these things roll up into one overriding choice that lies at the end of the customer journey. Will the customer have buyer's remorse, or will they have brand loyalty? Customers expect to experience a consistently satisfying experience throughout all of the touch points, the marketing, the shopping, the support, the community. As you can imagine, this does lead to some challenges in managing the entire customer experience. Multiple touch points will have a cumulative impact on content experience. A bad social media push combined with a bad shopping experience will start leading to a cumulative, the customer doesn't want this anymore. Um, Inconsistent content experiences create fuzzy brand experience. We've all seen, maybe been part of, the manuals that don't look like they come from the same company. If the content experiences vary widely in tone, in approach, in presentation, it makes it look very fuzzy to the customer. Marketing and TechCom content silos are disconnected from each other. While TechCom really does need to be accurate, marketing and TechCom should work together to create the customer experience, the accuracy and the technical content, and the marketing push to make the users and the customers want that content. Cluttered IT ecosystems can prevent implementing a holistic content strategy. The different programs that marketing, that customer support, that that TechCom use may not play nice with each other, and trying to get them to work together so that that content can be spread and shared and used across all the worlds may be very difficult. These two quotes made a huge impact on me and how I viewed my customer documentation for my company. 74% of business-to-business customers refer to post-sale documentation as part of their purchase decision-making cycle. This is from IBM. 74% of these customers will look at our manuals, at our technical content, at our marketing communication, and determine based on that if they're going to pursue making that purchase. If this doesn't make you feel both proud and scared, it did to me. It was very eye-opening. As Stefan put it, technical communication is marketing communication. It is a hidden sales champion. The two together make the most impact on customers and on sales. Corporation needs to leverage the power of their technical content for marketing and sales. It's a very eye-opening panel, very eye-opening to me. Beyond exclamation points, using tone to make content meaningful, from Susan Blue and Jasmine Probst from Facebook. It was a rather interesting panel on how to use voice and tone to add interest and, as they call it, delight to the technical content, to the presentation. Now, some things that they pointed out: voice is not the same as tone. Voice is the personality that stays the same. Tone is the expression of that personality in a situation. John Wayne always sounded like John Wayne. However, John Wayne in a comedy expressed his John Wayne personality differently than John Wayne in a drama or an action picture. Tone adds delight and interest to the voice for instructions and guidance, but tone does not add delight if you use a lot of exclamation marks. Some ideas of tone that you can use as you're going through perhaps a training exercise that you're writing for the user. Celebratory, let's start training. Or you can be more informative. You can start training on this screen. or sympathetic if you know ahead of time the training is going to take a while. Training can take a few moments. It's a good way to add more personalization and intimacy towards the customer in your writing, in your content. And I found that rather interesting. Let's Get Personal by Megan Gilhooly of Zoom In Software presented the idea of personalization, which is the act of adding context and relevance to information so that users can find it more quickly, relate to that information, and use it immediately to make more informed decisions. 78% of customers believe that organizations who provide custom content are interested in building good relationships with them. But poorly personalized content feels creepy and annoying and will turn off those consumers. To personalize content, your system must recognize the user. A return login. Remember their behavior, profile preferences. You prefer text messages versus email, for instance. Add relevance in appropriate places. At this point, you might want to consider, adding this to the menu or whatever. And make appropriate contextual, behavioral, and role-based recommendations. Hi, based on your return and that you're looking at these books, you might want to take a peek at these books that may be of interest to you. The Amazon personalization versus some really badly done personalization. A rather interesting one. Something to look into for personalization, but I'm unsure as to how many of us can address it immediately. But there may be some things that we can address in our own small way in our own content. Naz Urbina of Omnichannel X Digital presented Rage Against the Machine, Overcoming the 4 Main Barriers to Content Strategy Success. He presented the barriers that he saw to content strategy success and how we can work around them or work sometimes with them. For instance, thinking like a publisher, and that the publisher determines the content for customers. Buying a book, book publisher purchases the books, packages it, and sends it out. Customers don't see that content until the publisher has sent it out. Well, think of like a product manager and use user design thinking on how that content may be presented to customers, may be pushed out to customers, or make the customers want to pull that content for themselves. Develop omnichannel customer journey maps with a holistic view of how the users achieve their goals. For your product, how do the users achieve the goal? How will they get there? What kind of content will they need at that point? Another challenge is hanging on to the past. We've always done it this way. This is a iterative challenge because it will always be there, I'm afraid. Well, create a support program on how to present your content strategy and how to support that content strategy, and expect that you may have organizational change. Different departments may shift over and take up different responsibilities to help you out with your content strategy. Another barrier is working in silos. the individual interaction rather than the customer journey. One of the other presentations talked about the customer journey, and that was a holistic process. Well, this is one person working on one part, the shopping cart, for instance, without looking at the support or the investigative phase of it. They're working as on the individual interactions rather than looking at it as part of the whole. One way to get around it is create cross-functional standards groups that will look at the whole thing, not just that one little bit of content. And as the other presentation pointed out, build a content strategy for your content strategy plan. Death by tagging. When you're trying to really use and reuse the content across, and you tag it, and you tag it, and you tag it to the point that it's difficult to really move ahead because it's got too many tags. It's used for too many things. You have to build meaningful content models. You have to understand how that content model will work so that you can understand the tags that must be used and the ones that may not be used and the ones that shouldn't ever be used, maybe. Partner with your colleagues and try to use natural language processing if possible for consistent tagging. If that takes care of the 80% of tagging, then you can use your expertise to take care of the 20% that requires a lot more thought and judgment. And an extra barrier is the overreaching idea of tech will fix it. Just no. New tech will not fix it. Just do not go there. A few sessions which I thought were interesting. First one was tidying up. Clear out content clutter and choose joy by Christopher Hill. Two of the things that he pointed out was create the metadata for the content, but remember, too much is not better. The metadata tends to come out in feast or famine, and it may be as simple as dates or tags, but if you're tagging too much, if you're putting in too much metadata, it doesn't really help you find it or use it. The second one just really hit me. Plan for end-of-life documentation. How to deal with zombie documentation. Documentation content has a full life cycle. There's the creation of new content, maturing of that content into a full, robust product, maintaining that legacy content, and then there's the end of life, when that content is no longer valuable, no longer relevant, no longer useful. Well, there's a lot of zombie content out there, and unless you make a plan for how to end that documentation, you may end up in a world of hurt. Some of plan for end of life when the product that it's written for is no longer supported or sold and no longer updated. But even more, plan for, are you going to archive it? If you do, put it in a PDF file so you have it, but it's not really usable for others to use accidentally, because zombie documentation hangs around and people will use this bit of zombie documentation and perpetuate it unless you give the documentation a funeral. When it's over, the documentation's reached the end of life, give it a funeral, put it in the ground, inform users of that bit of content how not to access it or what you've done with it. Write the obituary for it. I'm in the process of going through a lot of old documentation, which sometimes is reused inappropriately, and this really made an impact on me because that is something that we do kind of forget, how to end our documentation plan. And it can really, really save your life if you've had to deal with zombie documentation. A workshop that I went to was how to write for reuse. Very, very usable, very informative. Reuse does not mean low usability. Reusing everywhere does not mean that you're really working smart. You have to be aware of the types of things that can be reused, how it can be reused, and what to avoid to make the most out of that reuse. And content modeling is a great part of it. The things that can be reused is structure, a content model, a template, documentation organization scheme, a section, front and back matter, a chapter or part of a chapter, a topic, a component. You can use an entire topic that creates a chapter. Just use that one component of it. Or an element, which is the small fragments in a topic that can be reused. A warning, a step that is repeated over and over, a caution. How to use the best use of how to best use reuse. Pardon me. There are different things to. You can use identical reuse, which is using the topic, the component as is. The front back matter as is. You don't need to change it. You don't need to swap it. You just pull it in. Conditional. You may have some type of condition that you use it. You may have to put a conditional indicator on it. Warning, do not put the 2-volt/2-volt switch into operation. And you may have a condition that says, hey, in this instance it's 2-volt, in this instance it's 4-volt. It's conditional. Variable, which is pretty much like a product name. You're using it as a placeholder. And what you shouldn't do is derivative reuse, which creates a relationship between a source and a destination. For instance, taking a topic that almost but doesn't quite fit and rewriting it to use in the new location. That is really a derivative and shouldn't be used unless you know what you're doing and it's accounted for in the content model, and should still be as rare as possible. A few ways to deal and gotchas for reuse that you have to watch out for is dependent language. And this is the content around the content that you're reusing. This is things like, as we've discussed before, or things like that. It's other content that you need to understand the bit of content that you're reusing. So you need to be careful of that dependent language. Inconsistent styles and terminology. You know, is it click the button? Is it click the checkbox or click the option? Are you really referring to the same thing? Make things consistent all the way through. The easing into topics. This is the introductory language that, if you're writing narratively, you don't like to say, push the button now. Well, in order to do this, go ahead and push the button. Well, if you're writing for reuse, you only need to push the button now. And the rest of it, that ease makes it impossible to use that bit of information for reuse. And long topics, the extra long content, topics that have too much content for reuse and really doesn't work. Keep it short, keep it small. Write straight to the point and don't ease into things. You just need to jump in. A session which I found rather interesting was called Easy Bake Training, a Marcom Tech Writing Success Story. And it was a way that they managed to work around releases and release information to the benefit of the user. They work with Athena Health, which provides software platforms for the healthcare industry. And they had, they've got some releases that they need to roll out to the customers, but they found that their releases were disruptive to the customers. The release notes weren't very useful to the specific customers, and the customers were doing their own training for each release, which made it rather difficult, to get customers to get the new release. So what they decided is that they're going to create a training and release plan for their releases. They revised their release notes to be role-based and user-targeted. Not only that, they used the information in the release notes and created a matrix, a roles matrix and user matrix, to determine what areas of the release notes needed to be combined into a release notes for managers, for nurses, for medical staff, for doctors, for IT, for admin. Based on the information from these release notes and this matrix, they made training slides, how to use the new features, the changes that were done from the old release to the new release, and how to handle that. All of these things were packaged together and sent out to their customers as an entire release plan. They planned their releases, and they planned their release plan as if it was a mini release ahead of the official release, which I thought was very, very good. It was an interesting way to deal with the issue of presenting information to the user that may not be real helpful. It was a very, very interesting session. I'm looking forward to getting the slides and looking closer at how they did that. LavaCon does a recap video to show all the fun stuff and cool stuff that was talked about at the conference. If the video does not play, go to https://playervimeo.com video. Go to this URL and type it in and take a peek at the video. It's rather cool. Thank you. In summation, I do think that LavaCon is a fantastic conference. I will admit it is a little bit pricey, so you may have to, see if you can get your workplace to pay for it. And if you can't go, check out the virtual option. It really is a not only a price savings, but it's a great way to get a lot of fantastic information to help you in your career. Thank you.